Hi, welcome to another episode of Pivot, where we talk about different transformational stories and really have them unfold in the most magical way. Moments of when people were at crossroads, when life fell apart, or rather, fell together. Today's guest is Clancy. He has a very interesting journey where he faced those pivotal moments that defined him, that created him. And we're going to hear a little bit about his journey. And hopefully you can relate to some of his story.
Thank you.
Hi, Alan. Welcome.
Thank you.
I know a little bit
Right.
about you. And there's also so much that I don't know. And one of the things that stuck out that called me to have you come on this podcast today is that you were one of the very rare people that contracted anthrax.
Right.
And this was something that completely shifted your life, but it's not about just the fact that it shifted your life. It really reshaped you.
Totally.
And so I want to hear a little bit about this story, okay? Because you were an acrobatic dancer,
Right.
Doing shows in Vegas and everywhere.
Yeah.
And so talk to me a little bit about what your life was like and then what happened. How did you get anthrax?
Right. I worked in shows in Europe and Asia when I was about 17. I traveled for 3 years, and then I eventually got a contract to work in Las Vegas. So I did shows there also. When I decided to go to Los Angeles, I actually got involved with energy work. But one day there was a march against George Bush for the Iraq War. So all my friends and I got together and we started marching with thousands of people on Hollywood Boulevard. So I was marching, it was all fine. And then all of a sudden I said to my friends, something's wrong with me. I said, I'm feeling really odd, like I'm going to throw up or something. I just have to go. So I drove myself home, and by the time I got home and went through my front door, I collapsed on the floor. I did a few yoga positions, but I did it like when you put your legs behind yourself and sit down on that position, like a yoga position. It's a really strange story, but my right leg went backwards and it snapped in half. So when that happened, I knew it was super serious. I remember not being able to breathe. I called my lover and said, you better get here quick. Something really bizarre has happened to me. By the time he got back, I was basically dead from anthrax.
Oh my God! Wait a second. So, was this something that was just thrown into the protest and the crowd, or
it was in that period where I remember a lot of things were in envelopes. There was anthrax in envelopes. It was happening with the government. It was having different people. So, how I did find out about it, I didn't know, of course, what was happening.
I'm sure the doctors probably didn't know either.
They didn't know either. The thing that was the worst was the knee, which was about the size of a basketball. They had to take all that out, but my leg was facing the other direction.
So because of this anthrax,
right,
you kind of lost full control of your body.
Because I was a gymnast dancer, I lost complete control of my whole body, and specifically my right leg.
And so it almost like paralyzed you in a way.
It paralyzed me, right. I was full of poison. So they took tests on what was inside me, and when they looked at the list, it was the same list as anthrax.
Oh my God.
So basically I knew I was dying on the floor in my living room, but because I had learned energy work and I had done that in hospitals for quite a while in Los Angeles, I could put my hands on my heart and I could start it up again. I can do that. So I would restart my heart up so I wouldn't die.
Wow. Okay. So you're almost dying. You're on the floor in your living room. Your lover comes back.
Right.
And you get rushed to the hospital right away, right?
Right. I did a few things like acupuncture and different things that had people come to see me quickly, but none of it worked. So they threw me into surgery. They said it would be half an hour. They could maybe straighten it, but they couldn't, and they broke my leg in surgery. And then after that, I was in surgery 10 hours. They opened my whole leg and everything, just they couldn't figure it out, while my leg was facing the other direction.
Wow.
It was pretty bad. So
and then for somebody that made his living and it was your life,
right,
since you were 17 years old, traveling all over the world, being an acrobatic dancer and performer, this had been devastating for you once that set in mentally that, hey, I'm not getting my leg back.
I remember the minute, because you know you like the ideas of something that's pivotal. I remember going to the doctors after the operations and going in the room, and I remember saying to them, "Who's that on the wall?" They said, "That's you." I said, "What's all that metal and everything?" They said, "You're full of, we had to put metal in your leg, down the sides, screws and everything." And I said, "That's me?" They said, "Yeah, that's you." And I said, "What's going to happen to me?" They said, "Well, you'll never really walk again, and if you do, it'll just be totally a straight leg. So you will never dance again, you will never be able to use your body anymore." So my whole life, that was the end of my life at that period.
Oh my God.
So I had to be flown to Australia because they did do surgery for 10 hours and that was unsuccessful. They wanted to go in again, and I refused because I do energy work. And I said, if I go in next time, I'll definitely be dead. If I go in for another 10 hours, that's it. They wanted to open me up again because they couldn't fix it. So I went to Australia and I saw doctors there, and they said they didn't never see anything like it either. So they decided to ask me what I wanted to do. You're allowed to see 20, 30 doctors in Australia when they can't figure it out. So I got with all the doctors and I said, take all the metal out, because at that time I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't function at all. So I said, if you take the metal out, let me do the rest. So
Wow.
they agreed upon it, so they took it out.
If I remember correctly, that this caused you to be pretty bedridden for how long?
The whole process took 10 years to walk again.
10 years to walk again.
Right. So I opened a spiritual store in Sydney, and I ran the store from a bed in the back.
Oh my God.
So that's how I started to get my life back together again.
But what's interesting is you still continued to have a mindset that you were going to find a way.
Yeah, and how I found the way was, I remember lying down in a bed for so many months going, well, my life's finished. And my lover got a job, so he got a job at the airlines, but I was at home in bed, not being hardly to move or anything. So I eventually went to a library across the road, and I dragged myself over and I opened a book by a surgeon who said that if you can go inside your head and let go of all concepts, and also lie in the pain and don't be afraid of the pain, you may be able to transfer yourself out of this problem. So that's what I did. I listened to what he said. I went home, I lied down for months just with my head down in depression. And within that, I saw that in the pain, there's a light inside the pain that would transfer me to be alive again. So that's what I did. I kept saying in that until I could transfer myself and get up. So
Wow.
I got up, and then for the next month or so, my leg I would just drag. It was a dead leg. I just dragged it in the city and fall over and stuff like that. But I eventually got to walk, and eventually the store did well. And then I promised myself after 5 years with the store that I would come back to America and start all over again.
Wow. Okay, so you have this whole life
Right.
in show business.
Right.
You have this anthrax poisoning, losing all control, which
Right.
causes this break and injury, all of these surgeries,
Right.
flown back to Australia. But in that,
I lost everything.
you lost
I
everything.
lost my house. I lost money. I lost everything. Right.
And a lot of people would just
And my relationship, because my relationship became nurse and doctor sort of thing, I was taken care of, but that ruined the relationship.
Interesting. But you still stayed in a relatively, I mean, you said that you went through depression and everything along those lines.
Sure.
But I'm seeing how that also caused you to dive in even more into that spiritual practice.
It did, yeah.
You opened a spiritual center in Australia,
I did. I did.
And even though you couldn't maneuver, you couldn't get around, was there any insights or clarity that you gained from having and diving a little bit more into that spiritual realm and having that center and being the business owner and doing all of that you probably wouldn't have done had this not happened to you, right?
Right. But the actual question, though?
Is it what insights or gifts did that give you?
How to help people, say, in death, because little did I know that when I went back to America, that AIDS was going on so big. I ended up doing energy work on people that were dying because they had no doctors who could help them anymore. So I was in the position of people that were no drugs could help them. They would die pretty fast. So I decided that would be my calling. So I started 13 people into Sinai Hospital to bring people so I could hold them while they died or didn't die. So, and I knew that they didn't have to if they didn't want to. So then I would talk to them and ask them would they rather, what they want to, I would always ask them what they want to do. Would you like to stay or go? And then I could give them the opportunity of which they would want because I knew I'd already done it. So then I could help people to either leave or stay.
Wow.
It happened a lot.
So it gave you this big gift of being able to face death and help other people through such a challenging moment.
That's right.
Make that choice. And you could support them.
Yeah, you have a choice. You have a choice. Even if everybody's left you, you're in a bed and there's no way out, your brain can get you out of that situation. It all depends if you have the faith that you can do that, and you can get up from the bed.
Wow!
I proved it over and over.
I mean, you were a walking miracle, and now you walk. I mean, I know you still deal with leg pain, and there's some mobility issues that you have, but they said that you would never walk again.
Right.
You continued.
And I did bend it more. I found there was a thing called acupuncture surgery. I met a doctor who did it's called acupuncture surgery, and they heat up the needle and it has a weight on it. Hardly anybody people do it, but he does it. I found him at the university, and he said, if I work on you and have the students watch you, would you be willing? And I said, yeah. So he awoke on my knee by dropping a boiling needle into my leg with a weight, and they drop it from a point, and then it explodes, and the heat explodes. When it explodes, it brings back life. So it took 6 months, but once the blood came out, then I started to move it. So that's how I got that to move something that the doctors had said to me, the 20 doctors that I met. The only one doctor said to me, if you can get energy into your leg, then it can come back. But I don't know how you do that. So I said to myself, well, I'll figure that out because I do energy work. And so I found that doctor to do that for me. So most of my things have been to the impossible to the possible.
The impossible to the possible. To the possible.
Yeah.
And taking you on the most interesting journey.
Right.
I mean, when you were like a little kid, could you ever imagine where life would take you?
Never.
And what about some of these times? I know that a lot of people that are listening, when they hear your story and how much has happened, right? I mean, these are things that most people would never go through in their lifetime. And a lot of people, we've had many different facets and journeys, right? So everybody has their own story.
Yeah.
But, in it, you continued to prevail, right?
Yeah.
And you had choices. What I'm hearing in some of the things is that at that moment, when you were on the floor in your place in Los Angeles, you had a choice of whether you lived or died.
Oh, I heard the words. Yeah.
Right?
I think a lot of people tell you when they're close to death, they'll hear the words, would you like to go or stay? I've talked to people in hospitals. I had the same words, would you like to stay or not? And they said it would be very difficult. And I said, well, okay, that's all right. I have a lot to do, and I'm willing to take that journey. And in comes the pain.
And in comes the pain immediately. And you're like, wait, did I make the right choice?
What have I done?
And I mean, that might be a little hooey-wooey for some people. Some people might resonate with that. But, regardless of whether hearing the voice and that resonates with you or not, for those that are listening, it's about making that choice. And you continued to pull yourself forward, right? Now, were there times when you were sitting there and you were like, I just want to give up? And what happened in those moments and what you felt? Because, I mean, it sounds like it was just like a cascade or a domino effect of all of these things happening. Losing your career, your identity, then you go and you said that your relationship deteriorated, then, you're dealing with all this at once. It's a lot. Did you have those moments? Or?
Well, what was interesting is I had traveled all around the world. I had won awards in Vegas. I worked for the Mafia at the Tropicana Hotel. I've been I did so many things there. I was with a ballet company. There was nothing that I didn't do, but that was all taken away. But I remember when I was in Sydney and I was running the store, I promised myself that I would bring my mind to be able to come back to Los Angeles. That was my one thought. If I can get back to Los Angeles, I know I can start all over again. I knew I couldn't start all over again in Australia. It's very expensive to start there. It's quite expensive to live in Australia. But I preferred LA, and so I left my lover, I left everybody there, left my family. It was my brother and sister, the only two that were alive. And I said to them, no, I'm going to go back. I'm going to work it out. So I remember I used to sit I lived in a high-rise overlooking the harbour, which is one of the most beautiful harbours in the world. But when I would look, I'm looking at the Hollywood sign. So I would do that. I forced myself to see it. And I said, that's going to come together. It's going to happen. So that's what I did. And it did. It happened. And I had 20,000 left, and I had 1 day to get back to America because my passport and my visa ran out. I had 1 day. So I remember getting on the plane, and I got to America, and then they called me into course. When they saw 1 day, they said, what have you been doing? I said, I was in hospital. They said, you have 1 day left on your visa. I said, well, I've been through this journey. Will you let me in? They said, well, we heard your story. Yes. So they let me in. Then I kissed the ground, and then everything
Wow.
from then on went correct. And I ended up working in your store. It kind of worked its way that way.
So fascinating. One thing that I'm hearing over and over and over again is you allowed yourself to see a future version of yourself.
I did.
Right? And I think that may be one of the key factors to help in a time when you're at a crossroads, you're overwhelmed with pain, you have this obstacle or challenge in your life. You saw the future version of you, and you had conviction that you would find a way. You didn't know how, you didn't know if you were even going to be allowed, but you went after it anyways. You could have been turned away at customs and not let in, but you came anyways, and you said, let me see.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody warned me against it. They said it couldn't work. And then could you drive a car? Could you get a job? And I said, let me figure it out. And so that's when I decided to read tarot cards. I thought, well, what can I do? So I sat, because I couldn't walk much, and I started reading tarot cards, which I found very helpful for me to use my mind instead of my body, because I always use my body. That was the main thing. I could do so many, I was always getting into shows because I could do so many somersaults. I could do so many tricks. I could do all different kinds of dancing. But this time I had to use my mind, which meant I had to use my heart more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what do you think the biggest gift about that is for you? Like if you look back and you see your story and how it's unfolded, and you're somebody that you could have did all of this stuff with your body, you mastered your body, you could do somersaults, flips, this and that.
Right.
I'm sure if you were now coming up, you would be one of those Circus du Soleil performers or more, right?
Oh,
you know, like
sure.
you know, that's like
Well,
to
I worked
give
in shows like that.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
I'm giving the audience the visualization of something relatable today.
Yeah.
And so that's like body mastery at the 9th. You know, like the 10th level, right?
Yeah.
You know, to do that, I'm always like in awe at what people can do.
If you go backwards a little bit, but it does make sense now. I've never thought of it this way. But when I worked in the shows, I was always liked in the many of the shows, but there was one show that was going to be opened by Bob Mackie, and I wanted to work for Bob Mackie because I knew he was so famous in costuming, and it was going to be the most expensive show ever put on by MGM. I knew I wouldn't be able to get in because you have to be 6 feet tall. You're not working for Don Arden. You have to be 6 foot tall to get in the show to be by a showgirl. You can't be. I was 5'8", and I knew I couldn't get in, but I was determined that I had to be in that show. So I remember going. I auditioned with everybody, the hundreds of people, and I remember hearing a voice going, "Everybody off stage, but Alan Clancy, would you please stay on the stage?" So I stayed. He said, "Well, tell me what you do by yourself." So I did, And after Don Arden's a very difficult person to work for, but really talented. So after I auditioned for that show, he said to me, "I've never done this before." He'd had many shows. He said, "I'm going to put your heels this tall, but I want you in the show." So I got in the show. So if I look back now at my past, there was something in me that I knew somehow that I would get in that. That was an impossibility, but I overrode it.
Wow.
Does that help you?
Yeah. And that's this mindset and this knowing and determination and showing up and doing
Right.
things anyways.
That's right.
Is this theme that I see that has created magic in your life.
I'm totally magical. People call me magic. Yeah.
And
Even the business I end up running, because I did all the different shows, and after MGM did close down, I opened a vintage clothing store and I bought 3 old houses downtown, which were railroad houses nobody wanted. I decided to open the first art gallery of artists in Las Vegas. I opened the first coffee shop that existed and the first vintage clothing store, and I built a stage. Nobody said it could be done. I did it with no money. That is now in history, and the sign, it's a neon sign, is in the Neon Museum, which I just was there. And that neon sign, let me see, after I left and came to from here to Los Angeles, I left that sign there. So when I left, that whole area is pulled down. So my store kind of disappeared. But somehow somebody took that sign, gave it to the Neon Museum. The Neon Museum found my name, so that sign, I was down there in front of it, and I had my own painting because I paint. My art is in there under that sign, so they want to take it off and have those paintings back on. So something returned again. I created that building, it was taken down, but the sign became something that has now become famous.
Interesting.
Something brought it back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And this whole roller
It's
coaster
trippy.
of
a real
life.
roller coaster, yeah.
And for those that are listening, the roller coaster that we all go through, right?
Right.
And they might not be the peaks and the valleys might look different to other people. But what would you say were some of the biggest tools or techniques or how you got through and allowed you to continue to prevail? There's something that you have that's mastery within that to move past obstacle and devastation after devastation.
Right.
Have you been able to define that or look at that? Was it a mindset? Can you give any advice for somebody that might be stuck? That's something that you did that worked so well for you to get through and to help you pivot.
I think the lessons are, for instance, the store. I had the 3 stores, and then all of a sudden I had the coffee shop in the back. I couldn't run the 3. It was too difficult to run the 3. It was doing very successful. Everybody went, what was her name? Debbie Reynolds bought most of her clothing for me because I bought all the show clothes, and nobody wanted it in those periods. They didn't want any of that. So I sold to all those people. But there was a girl who came into the coffee shop and said, could I take the coffee shop? And I said, how much you want to pay? But we agreed upon it. She decided that she wanted the property. She heard that it was going to be worth a lot of money. So she turned on me and said, I want you to do more things. So I painted the place. I did murals and stuff like that. She actually painted them white because she didn't want anything to do with me. She wanted to eventually take over the place. She actually ended up having, it was a punk era, which I had a lot of punk costuming and stuff like that. She actually had people write things about me that were not correct. She took me to court and said she stopped paying rent. The reason why I'm saying this is because it was very painful, another painful thing. So I eventually packed up and moved to Los Angeles, which my life went up really well. But the reason why I'm saying this is because I stayed away for about 10 years. I never went back to Vegas anymore. So I decided one day, I heard a voice. I listened to voices. I heard a voice say, go back and say hello to her. I said, really, I'm going to go back? So I went back and I went to the property and it looked pretty strange. And I went to the back and that lady did a lot to me in court. It was pretty cruel. So I went back and I remember knocking on the coffee shop and the guy opened the door. And I said, where is she? He said, she's dead. I said, how could she be dead? She was 30 years younger than me. She said she died of an overdose of drugs. I said, you've got to be kidding. And I left and went, how strange life could be that somebody could hurt you so much. And then she's dead. She took my property and she died. I went back to Los Angeles and there was another call on the phone. She had a young daughter, and the young daughter was, I think she was 5 or 6, which I really liked. They said, I need to tell you something also. They said, the daughter's dead. They both died.
Wow.
So
it's a tragedy, but
the tragedies of those two, the miracle of the pain of what happened, and then to see that somehow the universe does what it does. I don't know, somehow it lifted the pain away.
Interesting.
Is that helping? I'm trying to figure that out myself too, but
Is it your faith? Like, what was the
my faith.
what was the factor where you said, was there something you said to yourself? Was there something that you had to do, or what, or a belief that you might have carried that caused you to even walk away, right?
Right.
Or like, what is it in you? Because a lot of people are paralyzed by situations that happen, right? Somebody
Very
could,
traumatic.
somebody could have, okay, this person betrayed me, they took my business, they rang me to dry in court,
Right.
and then they don't do anything. They don't move forward, they don't make a leap, they get stuck. And we've all been in there, and sometimes our stuckness can last days, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's years. But the interesting fact that it's happening over and over with you is you were able to move forward. And I don't know your own struggles, but it seems like you were able to find a way to move with grace very rapidly and continue to progress your life.
Right, yeah.
Because, I mean, with everything that you just shared of how much stuff you've done and accomplished and explored and created, is there something inside of you that allowed for those transitions to be that easy for you? I mean, not easy. I don't think that they were easy, but to get you to move forward. What was it?
I was brought up Catholic, so therefore I had a spiritual life. I traveled around the world, went to spiritual sites. Little did I know that that's how my life would end up. So I would say all of it has led me to understand how the heart works, how the mind works, and how you can, like you do hypnotherapy. Mine's a bit different than yours. Mine is to let go of the mind and not let the mind tell you what it wants to do, to, in some ways, stop the mind from working. When you stop the mind from working, then spirit, if you want to call it, can come in and work with you and give you the right answers and get you where you want to go. So when things have become uncomfortable, it's best to let the mind go, and then you'll be told what to do. What I do now is I wake up in the morning and I don't do anything. I write down 10 things that I have to do, but they're not done by me. So I follow those 10 things.
So
whether
it's
you
almost
believe-
like an act of surrendering. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's an act of surrendering.
And so, interesting. So
I
one
don't
of
do
your
it.
recipes for success, or to make it through, like,
Right.
to cause you to allow, to pivot, to move forward, to continue your life, and to have this positive energy to you, is you surrendered.
Yeah, you do.
And so you, okay, let go, let God, if you will.
Yeah.
And a level of trust, and then you were given the reassurance. I think if we go back to the story about the woman and her daughter,
Yeah.
is that you don't have to worry about trying to correct or right or wrong.
Well said. That's right.
That everybody will have their own struggles or their own pains, and that you just concentrate on you.
It's on you, right? And then you let the universe do what it does, and then you don't what would you say? You don't criticize it.
Yeah.
You just let it unfold in front of you, and you see the miracles of how it works. And basically, everything's about yourself anyway, about being able to help others. That's the main reason why you're here. So if those people had those journeys, that was their journey with me. Whether it be negative or positive, it's still a journey, and it's interesting.
And your journey continued.
And continues, yeah. I think the trouble with religion is the religion hasn't taught the dark side of life. They haven't shown the two sides of the batteries. And so I like to look at the both sides of religion. Religion's too much about it's all going to be wonderful and marvelous, you're going to go to heaven. But it's all inside you. Yeah, everything's inside you. So if you get inside yourself and go a little more internal and get connected to spirit.
And could you, as we kind of approaching a little bit more of a close, but I want to see with this surrender and this trust.
Right.
Over and over, the theme that I'm hearing is trust, surrender, and a strong, certain visual of what your future was going to be. Like
Yeah.
you knew there was a definiteness to your desire and your direction. I said, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I see that I want to create this or this experience in your life. So you see in a compelling future. So I hear surrender, I hear a compelling future, and I hear a level of faith and spirituality and connection that is sprinkled within your story.
Right.
For those that are listening that may be having a hard time letting go of the ideal version of their self that they thought they were supposed to live, right? Because you could have easily held on to, I was supposed to continue to be a dancer and travel the world. And this ideal version of like, this is how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like that, right? And people get caught in supposed to, not supposed to, in attachment. If there's anybody listening that they are suffering because the relationship was supposed to work, or the business was supposed to work, or they weren't supposed to lose that lover or friend or family member at this time in their life, the ideal attachment that they have, can you give some advice of how?
Well, they're no different. I mean, like I said, they're both sides of the battery. So if you love both sides of the battery and you, I guess it's a horrible thing to say, but enjoy the both sides, then you can bypass all that.
Okay.
And get where you want to go.
But if
Make
somebody's
sense?
somebody's stuck, like
Oh, sure.
like is there some?
If somebody came to me and wanted to know what to do, there's only three ways. There's only mind, body, spirit. Might sound corny, but there is. So if somebody comes and says, how can you help me? I have to look at them and see, well, is it that if they're not spiritual, I have to work with their body. So then you talk to their body and how to fix their body, maybe like infrared, acupuncture, massage, or you work in that area so you can finally move them into the other area.
Yeah, and what about
Yeah,
a bit of advice for somebody that's just listening? How can they surrender a little bit more?
Well, it's internal. By concentrating on one thing and stopping the mind from jumping all over the place, and also not, you say to yourself that the future doesn't exist and the past is dead. If you say the past is dead, tell them to go to a graveyard and dig it up. It won't be much fun. And you can also say to them, well, it's not very good to, the future doesn't exist, it's not happening. So if you live in the present, if we bring you into the present, then we can get to the nitty-gritty of being happy in this moment. The more that you extend that, the more that the past and the future will fix itself.
Interesting. It's good advice. So bringing and centering back into the moment.
Into the moment. You have to live in the moment.
And
You won't be happy with your
trying to
breath
find
now.
that happiness and that
that's-
fulfillment in the now.
Yeah, that's where God,
And then
God
magnify it. And
lives. That's where Jesus lived. That's where Buddha lives. They all live in the present moment. The more you read about them and what they say, it's the present moment. Yeah. Mary Magdalene said the same thing to Jesus.
So living in the present moment,
Yeah.
seeing if you can have a compelling future,
Yeah.
and then the duality of the darkness and the light, and
Yeah.
finding a little bit of appreciation for the dark facet is what you're saying.
Yeah, and don't criticize. I mean, like in Hinduism, they think war is fine. If you go kill somebody, it all depends what you're thinking while you kill them. Well, when you kill them, if you're doing it for to help the country or to do it for some certain reason, you're doing it for a positive thing. So actually, things like that has a different idea with their thought process. So it all depends what your mind's thinking is where it will take you.
Well said, because it is where your mind's
It's where your mind. Yeah.
because that's where the
Yeah.
suffering lies, is
Your mind is a terrible
not
thing to waste.
allowing, and
Yeah.
and there's a huge future.
Yeah.
There's a huge future. Life continues. Life goes forward.
Yeah.
And when you let go of the past and what you think that it needs to be,
Yeah.
it opens you up to go on a completely different journey. And you've had a miraculous journey,
It is.
and
a
it's still
miracle.
continuing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It gets better. Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
It's beautiful. All right, Alan, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining
Wow,
today.
that was great. I really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed having you.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody, thank you.
Thank you.